Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a seriously provocative analysis from Prof. Jung Simplified. The source material here presents a pretty radical thesis that basically all the conventional financial advice you've ever been taught, it's actually a trap. It argues that the system isn't broken at all, rather it's deliberately designed to keep you working while keeping you exactly where you are financially. It's a fascinating perspective, so let's just get right to it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever looked around and just asked yourself, why do smart, hardworking people stay poor? You know the type, right? People working 40, 50, even 60 hours a week, doing literally everything society tells them is right, yet true wealth always seems just out of reach? Well, the premise here is that this isn't an accident. It's not a personal failure, and it's certainly not a lack of hustle. Instead, the source argues it's the direct result of playing the wrong game entirely.
Section 1. The Great Wealth Illusion.
To understand exactly why this happens, we kind of have to trace how the rules of money have evolved over time. Throughout human civilization, wealth distribution has typically favored a tiny elite. Think about feudalism. Ownership was obvious, right? It was gained by force or inheritance. The rules were clear and, frankly, visibly unfair. But then we hit the industrial age, and a massive class of wage laborers emerged. The analysis points out that the elites of that time faced a really serious problem. Workers could plainly see they were doing all the heavy labor while the owners got rich. That's a huge risk for a revolt. So it suggested that modern capitalism essentially invented hustle culture and the whole concept of meritocracy. This was a narrative crafted specifically to hide extreme inequality, making workers believe their situation was actually fair.
Section 2. 3 games keeping you poor. So this brings us to the core argument. To keep this whole system running, the elite designed 3 specific paths. Game 1. Trading time for money. You know, what we usually call climbing the corporate ladder. Game 2. Saving conservatively for retirement. And Game 3. Believing in meritocracy, which is the idea that if you just play by the rules, you absolutely will be rewarded. The explainer highlights how our education system and mass media heavily promote these paths. Why? Because when people inevitably fail to become truly wealthy, they look in the mirror and blame themselves, rather than questioning the broader economic system.
Let's look closer at that savings game with a pretty stark number: 2%. You are constantly told to be responsible, to put your hard-earned money in a savings account, earning a measly 2% interest. But there is a really harsh reality of math here. While you're earning that 2%, inflation is running anywhere from 3 to 7%. Day by day, year by year, your purchasing power is literally being destroyed. You are effectively losing money by trying to safely save it. Crazy, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates the most provocative claim here, that this entire setup is the most effective class control mechanism ever created. The self-help industry and the myth of meritocracy convince you that if you're struggling, it's just your mindset. This brilliant psychological trick makes systemic exploitation feel entirely fair. It effectively brainwashes exhausted workers into accepting their lot in life without a fight.
Section 3. Games the elite actually play.
But wait, if the conventional path of working and saving is a trap, how are billionaires actually getting rich? Well, let's contrast the games. The first false game for the masses is the salary, trading your finite time for someone else's profit. But the elite, they play game 1, ownership. The source stresses that the rich don't actually work for money. Instead, they focus entirely on acquiring assets like businesses, real estate, and intellectual property. They own things that generate passive cash flow while they sleep. They completely divorce their income from the limited hours in their day.
Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is leverage. This is defined as strategically using OPM, other people's money, time, and resources to exponentially amplify returns. The elite don't view debt as this terrifying burden like the middle class does. Not at all. Instead, they use debt strategically. They borrow money at low interest rates and use it as a tool to buy appreciating assets. When we compare these two paths side by side, the contrast is super stark. On the savings side, it offers linear, slow growth, minimal returns, and as we saw, it just gets crushed by inflation. But on the leverage side, the source neutrally outlines how the elite use leverage to achieve geometric growth. They are looking for 10x to 100x returns. Furthermore, it argues that the banking system and tax codes are deliberately structured to heavily favor those who utilize debt rather than those who simply save their pennies.
Finally, we have the third game. The masses are taught to play fair, follow the rules, and wait for their turn. But the elite, the source asserts, play a game of rigging the system. They understand that the rules of the game are made by the rich for the rich. It's claimed that honest people who genuinely believe meritocracy is real will inevitably lose out to those who aggressively exploit these systemic advantages.
Section 4. Making the shift to ownership.
I know, hearing all this can feel a bit overwhelming. But how do you actually make the shift if you're sitting there starting from absolute zero? Well, the approach here is highly realistic. It openly acknowledges you can't just quit your job tomorrow when you have bills to pay. So here are the steps it lays out. Step 1. Keep the day job to survive. Step 2. Sacrifice short-term comfort. And Step 3. Slowly acquire compounding assets on the side. Making this transition takes years. You're essentially working 2 jobs. It forces you to aggressively delay gratification today so you can build the long-term freedom of true ownership tomorrow.
We've covered a lot of highly provocative ground from this source today, absolutely challenging the very foundation of standard financial advice. It leaves us with a pretty powerful reflection. So based on this explainer, I'll leave you with this final question from the source. Will you keep playing the games that keep you poor, or learn the games that actually build wealth? The system might be set up a certain way, but what financial game will you choose to play tomorrow? Think about it. Thanks for learning with me today, and keep questioning the rules.